Hello, you are most welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to your power behind the voice on Tuesday Night Anatomy with Daniel Okwan. Yes, we are still in the era of anatomy of clinical importance. And my friends, today I discuss with you that of the anatomical snuff box. Yes, already I've done some videos to that effect. But my friends, today I want to specifically tell you some details which will be relevant, okay, as far as the clinical setting is concerned. And so, without wasting my time, let's set the ball rolling. Now, first of all, one thing that we understand about the anatomical snuff box is that, okay, it is that triangular, depression, okay, that snuff box, which of course we find just distal to, of course, the radial bone. Yes, something you can say also lateral to, of course, the wrist joint. And so specifically, that's what I want to show you. Now, if you look at my hand, okay, my hand, and of course, if you look at my forearm and of course the wrist area, what we see is that if I look at my hand, forearm, I can appreciate this is the radial bone, and of course, this becomes, of course, the ulnar bone. These are the two long bones, yes, as far as the forearm is concerned. Now, how do I know this? The radial bone, because it's in relation to where the thumb is, okay, and of course in relation to where the pinky, the little finger is, we have of course the ulnar bone. Okay, so these are the important things which I want you to understand. Now, first of all, I want us to appreciate the boundaries of this anatomical snuff box. So there are some tendons, okay, of some muscles, okay, as far as the forearm is concerned. Okay, actually we are talking about the posterior aspect of the forearm. The extensor compartment of the forearm. Yes, these muscles are concerned. There are some tendons which form these boundaries. Now, if I look at this, okay, one thing is that we can appreciate that I've indicated some area with the marker. Now, this one that you find over here, okay, is, we can say, is more medial compared to this one that you find over here. The one you find over here is more lateral, and it also goes in a bit anteriorly. The one you find here, which is a bit medial, goes more posteriorly. Okay, if you can appreciate that. Now, so for this reason, we're talking about the boundaries of the anatomical snuff box. These important tendons are relevant. Now, the first one over here that you find over here, very prominent over here, this one becomes, of course, some people call the medial boundary of the anatomical snuff box. And because it's a bit posterior, then we can also say the posterior medial boundary of the anatomical snuff box. My friends, this posterior medial boundary, because it's very closer to where the pinky is, okay, compared to the one over here, then one thing we can also say is that it also becomes the ulnar boundary of the anatomical snuff box. And my friends, this ulnar boundary of the anatomical snuff box is something we simply call EPL, extensor pollicis longus. Extensor pollicis longus. Okay, so that's the one we appreciate over here. Okay, just a single tendon over here, very prominent. And we are going to see the prominence, okay, especially when you extend, okay, you hyperextend, let me put it that way, you extend, okay, prominently, of course, this thumb. And that's when you are going to appreciate this snuff box, this triangular depression so much. And then apart from that, this other boundary that you find over here, where it's more lateral, okay, yes, you can simply say it's the lateral boundary, but it also comes a bit more anterior compared to this one, so you can say the anterolateral boundary of the anatomical snuff box. Okay, so these are the medial lateral boundaries. Okay, that's one thing I want you to understand. If you look at the apex over here of the triangular depression, the apex is formed when these, medial and lateral boundaries, of course, come and meet. Now, talking about the lateral boundary, or simply the lateral boundary of this anatomical snuff box, there are two tendons of muscles, okay, tendons of some particular muscles which will form it. Okay, and what are these muscles? We are talking about extensor pollicis brevis. Now remember that I told you that the lateral boundary, or the medial boundary, or the posterior medial boundary was formed by, of course, extensor pollicis longus. This time we are talking about the lateral boundary, or the anterolateral boundary, is formed by the tendons of two muscles. One of them is extensor pollicis brevis, and another one, something we call abductor pollicis longus. Now, oftentimes, that one we appreciate over here is, of course, the extensor pollicis brevis. But also, over there, we also have abductor pollicis longus. Okay, so these are the two tendon, tendons which will contribute to the lateral boundary or the anterolateral boundary of the anatomical snuff box. My friends, so how about the base? Remember that I told you that the anatomical snuff box is just distal to, of course, the radial bone, the radius. And so for this reason, one important body prominence that we appreciate, yes, as far as the distal end of the radius is concerned, is, my friend, something that we call radial styloid process. Radial styloid process. So the radial styloid process, yes, mainly will contribute to the base of this anatomical snuff box. Yes, that is one thing I want you to understand. Now, having appreciated this, there is something that I want you to understand, okay, as far as the clinical application is concerned. Sometimes if you continuously use your phone, your mobile phone, those who play game and all that, sometimes the tendons of these two muscles, those ones which are from the anterolateral boundary, can get inflamed together with their tendon sheets. Something we call dequevance, tenosynovitis. Okay, inflammation of the tendon sheet together with the tendon itself. Okay, so that one could lead to that kind of inflammation. So I want you to understand that. So whenever you talk about, dequevance tenosynovitis, think about the lateral two boundaries. Okay, so that is the one that we are talking about. That's the only thing we are talking about. Okay, so you need to appreciate that one. Now, apart from that, the next thing that we need to understand is that what will contribute to what we call the floor of this anatomical snuff box. The floor of the anatomical snuff box. Now, if you look at the roof, there's nothing to even talk about. Just the skin and of course the superficial fascia over there. But my friends, the floor is extremely important that we appreciate because there are some important clinical application, over there. So my friends, regarding the floor, you need to think about the lateral two bones. Okay, as far as the rows, the bones which form what we call the carpus is concerned. We have 8 bones of the carpus, and they are organized into proximal and distal rows. Yes, proximal we have 4, distal we have 4 bones. We are talking this time around is towards the lateral aspects. That's where the thumb is, so lateral aspects. So the lateral 2 bones, proximal and distal, the lateral most bones. Which are those bones? My friends, the one that we're talking about, one of course, is the scaphoid bone. Scaphoid. And of course, distally, so proximal we have scaphoid, okay, being part of the floor. And then of course, at the distal aspect, we'll be having what we call the trapezium bone, okay, trapezium bone. So I want you to understand, these 2 bones. And my friends, not only that, even distalmost, we will appreciate what we call the base of the 5th metacarpal. Now remember that we have metacarpal. We are talking about the base of the 5th metacarpal. We also form part of what we call the floor of what we call the anatomical snuff box. Now my friends, regarding the floor, there's a clinical application that we need to understand. And so whenever, we're talking about this clinical application, one important thing that I want you to understand is one bone. And my friend, that bone, that boat-shaped bone, okay, which is not really for support, okay, as far as the wrist is concerned, is, my friend, something we call the scaphoid bone. Scaphoid bone. Yes. And so this scaphoid bone can get, fractured in something that we call a fush injury, okay, falling on an outstretched hand. So sometimes, these falls, it tends to occur more around, yes, individuals who are less than 10 years, even around teens, because they engage in all these, activities which can predispose them to falling. And so when you fall, okay, always I say you should fall honorably. Okay, don't fall and of course stretch your hand so that the weight of your body will be on, of course, your wrist, so that it will cause hyperextension, extreme hyperextension as far as the thumb is concerned, and therefore it may cause this fracture of what we call the scaphoid bone. Okay, so whenever there's a fracture of this scaphoid bone, yes, clinically it's very important. Now, what's the reason? The reason is simple. Because of something that can happen. Something that can happen is that it can lead to the proximal portion of the fracture, okay, of the fragment of that bone, okay, leading to something we call avascular necrosis. Avascular necrosis. It means that there's no blood supply over there, okay, and then the bone cells, they are dying. Now, what's the reason? The reason is simple. As far as the scaphoid bone is concerned, yes, there are anatomic variation, but what we find in such cases is that the bone gets blood supply in a retrograde manner. And what do I mean by that? Now, if we have the fracture, assume there's the bone, This is scaphoid. Then one thing we should understand is that, and this is, to you, this area is of course the proximal part, and this area is the distal part. One thing we should understand is that, the distal part gets the blood supply, and then from there it gets to the proximal part. So whenever there's a fracture, so like this way, okay, there's a fracture, then what will happen is that the distal part, yes, will get supply, but my friends, the proximal part will not get the blood supply, and so it will begin to, of course, die. And that is something we call avascular necrosis. Very important that we understand these things, okay? So that whenever you are falling, okay, you don't fall on an outstretched leg, so that your weight, okay, gets, okay, and of course, cause, this fracture of this bone. Okay, that's the first thing I want you to, understand over here. That is the avascular necrosis. Now, apart from that, okay, one other thing too that I want you to understand is that we also have what we call the contents of the anatomical snuff box. Contents of the anatomical snuff box. Now, before I talk about the contents of the anatomical snuff box, now this, for instance, fracture, of what we call the, scaphoid bone, how do we test it clinically? Now, to test it clinically, this is what we do. Okay, in the snuff box, okay, with the thumb extended, or even if not extended, then what happens is that the clinician, okay, will try and of course put some kind of pressure to the snuff box. Now, if there's that kind of tenderness, focal tenderness at that area, pain emerging from that area, then it tells us that the snuff box, by way of the scaphoid bone, yes, there's that kind of fracture. Okay, that's how clinically we can physically, diagnose it. Yes, of course, the X-ray can also reveal that it is fractured. Yes, but of course, by way of physical examination, yes, it can be done in that regard. Now, I talked about, inflammation of these, tendons, okay, laterally, okay, those two tendons, okay, dequevans, tenosynovitis, that's the one we talked about. That one, how do we test for it? Okay, that one too, of course, if you ask the patient to extend, okay, the thumb, the patient may be feeling the pain, especially towards the lateral aspect, because that's where the tendon and the tendon sheath are. Okay, that is what we do. Now, as far as the contents of the anatomical snuff box, is concerned, you need to know about these three guys. Now, the first one is, of course, the superficial branch of the radial nerve. Already, yes, when we started this series, I've mentioned this to you, the superficial branch of the radial nerve. Yes, it's a content of this anatomical snuff box. My friends, not only that, we also have something called the cephalic vein. Cephalic vein, okay, is also a content, okay, of this anatomical snuff box. But my friends, as far as the clinical application is concerned, one thing I want you to know, the last content is, of course, the radial artery. Radial artery. This is the last part of radial artery. Yes, we are going to find it in this anatomical snuff box. Yes, we are going to find it over there. And so, what is it about? So what it means is that the pulse of the radial artery can be felt in this anatomical snuff box. So if you can appreciate the anatomical snuff box, you can feel the pulse. The pulse that you are going to feel over there is, my friends, that of the radial artery, where it runs superficial to, of course, the scaphoid bone. Okay, so that is one thing I want you to understand. My friends, so today, this is what, I discussed with you regarding, of course, we talked about the boundaries, okay, we talked about, of course, the floor, what is contributing to it, and also, we've also discussed that of what we call, the contents of the anatomical snuff box. My friends, I'm very grateful for your time, this evening. Have a good night, all of you, and may the good Lord richly bless you. Amen.